What's going on in India?
Yeah, hot as hell as usual. My complaint. I have nothing else to report.
I had many years in the lovely temperate weather in England. This shit is killing me. Is that what you're secretly saying to yourself?
Oh no, but I'm kind of upset about the fact where people tell me the weather, and I'm like, okay, it used to be like 102 in the summers in Oklahoma, so I don't really know what I'm complaining
Right.
about, but I'm gonna complain anyway.
Exactly.
You know me,
Yeah.
complaining is like my national pastime.
I hate to break it to you. You were in England so long. It is a sport there. Literally, just a passive sport. Kind of like
Even
fantasy football.
Oh God. Even my sister asked me the other day, she was like, is there anything you don't have a problem with? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe very little.
I have a problem with you asking me that. Okay. Hey, I've got a funny story for you before we get into the deep stuff. So,
Mhm.
I I am a person that revels in when political enemies make huge mistakes and go down, and as anybody. So
Mhm.
we had this guy during this last election, and he was literally a lunatic. Now I'm one of the people for some reason that got along with him. We didn't have any big tumbles or anything. And
Mhm.
so this guy is running for basically the head of school board for the whole state. And he has this guy named Ron, who's this trailer trash guy
Okay.
that always wears cut off t-shirts, and the hair's coming out the side of the t-shirt and all that stuff. And he films himself in his hot tub quite a few times to talk to people about this guy that ran for head of schools named Ryan Walters, who you've heard me mention, but this was his attack dog. Evidently, he'd
Mhm.
been arrested a couple of times before, and he had some other guy in his campaign that was arrested for inappropriate contact, to say it the polite way, with a minor. And so this guy
Well,
evidently, yeah, oh yeah, it was his campaign manager, his
the
original
fuck?
campaign manager. Yeah, the guy running to take care of schools, and we wonder why he turned out to be a weirdo. So this Ron guy, I don't know what the deal is, but his arrest report was 2 counts of burglary and one of stalking. Now,
Nice.
the election
Would
was
that
six
be
months ago. You had two people. Yes.
would that be stalking a minor?
No, no. This guy, I think he was stalking somebody he used to be in a relationship with.
No.
But
Cool.
he was a fraud, but he had really good artwork. And so you go, oh, who hired you? Nobody hired me, man. You go, well, I mean, talking to you for 5 minutes tells me you are incapable of doing this level of artwork. And he had a podcast that nobody listened to. Hey, everybody, it's Ron. Welcome to the podcast. This was awful.
I think we should start doing that, Sean. You'll lean into a redneck accent, I'll lean into an Indian accent, and we'll just do the
There
most
you go.
racist show possible. We can
Well,
offend
we're gonna hear about it.
1.8 billion.
I'm gonna stay out of that part of the argument. I'll be a little noticeable when I'm over there. I can do a pretty solid Indian accent though. I really can. I can do one.
I think I have heard it.
Yeah, I know. Well, what else is going on, my friend?
I hadn't heard from you, so I was just assuming that maybe you slept in.
No, yeah, we've got weather coming in, so I've got a weird pressure, but no headaches or anything. I'm good. So
Oh.
here's the thing about being old. Okay, I'm going to give
Mm-hmm.
you an old man to young man lesson. It's really not a lesson. It's just a factual conversation. So when I was your age, I was still playing soccer, and I would play hard still. It was fairly rough and difficult. And so the next day I'd wake up and I'd still be sore and shit. And from
Mm-hmm.
45 on, okay, because I'm 60 now or in a few months, you're not sore the next day. You're sore 2 days later. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the aggravation, angst, it doesn't get to your nerve for 2 days because it's moving so slow.
Oh
But
God.
I did that festival this weekend, and so for moving all the kegs and everything, I'm old, dude. I'm old, bro.
I wonder all the pain I'm going to go through considering all the bones I broke during that accident.
Yeah. Yeah, your face is just going to hurt. That's the thing. Your whole face is just going to hurt forever. And
For
you probably
anyone
got some
listening,
neck issues. Do I?
I said for anyone listening, I wasn't driving. I was sitting in the
No.
back of an unnamed app company that I was using.
It rhymes with boober. Wow. Yeah, that was brutal. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work when you get older. But trust me, you're going to feel it. You are going to feel it. You're going to feel it. So, hey, did I tell you about this band from Stillwater named Waxy something?
Uh-uh.
Stillwater, Oklahoma, a little tiny city
College
that's got
town,
a
right?
university. Do what?
College town is what I said.
Yeah, it's a college town. And now, since I've been in Oklahoma about 20 years ago, the single best Irish pub band I've ever seen in my entire life came out of Stillwater. And so I'm at the festival this weekend and I'm looking up and I'm like, that is the single best pub band I have heard in decades out of Stillwater as well. How weird is that for Celtic music to come out of one tiny little town? And I don't know any Celtic people who settled there, but maybe they passed through with the music program of the school or something.
Maybe.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it literally doesn't make any sense that. And these guys were tight. They were good.
That was
Like
my
a
first
big
reaction
band.
that it might be the students from OSU. OSU, right? Is
No,
the one there?
yeah, OSU. One of them is a professor, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a band back in the 80s called Boston, and most of the guys had gone to MIT and they were dynamite. Yeah. So not only were they good at science, they could
Mm-hmm.
play. Girls liked them too.
Uh,
I
what
know I
were we
had to
going to
throw
talk
that
about
little.
today?
Well, so do you want to
Do you want?
okay, no, let's go. Let's do FBI Joe. I think that one's pretty exciting, and we'll just call him FBI Joe because what's his actual last name? Because they say it in the movie, so I think it's okay.
I don't know. Do I know his last name? I'm pretty sure it's
Um,
because of you. I keep calling him FBI Joe, and I've forgotten his last name.
well, and Jeff the cop. Yeah,
No.
hey man, I think FBI Joe. Let's roll with that one. I think that's a pretty good story. We,
I was about to say go away villagers till I realized we haven't even done anything. That's how welcoming I am to our listeners, Sean.
well, it's the politeness. That's why people like you. It's the politeness. Hey, let me talk about one of my regulars here at the restaurant because I think this is a pretty hilarious story. So I got this guy.
Mm-hmm.
We got one guy named Jeff the cop, and then we've got this other guy. It's FBI Joe. And here's the deal. I'm at home watching Netflix, and I
Mm-hmm.
watched this movie about the city, or it's a murder here in the city of Oklahoma, where this girl named, I think her name was Tanya, and her the guy that posed as her boyfriend and all this stuff actually turned out to be her dad. Just nothing but just a creep. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm watching, and I'm like, my God, that's Joe, FBI Joe. What the hell's the deal? So he comes back into the play. He comes here a couple times a week. And I go, I didn't know you were in a Netflix series. And he goes, oh, yeah, we filmed that a few months ago. And I go, how has that never come up? You know what I mean? I mean, how does filming something? And he's great. And so
Mm-hmm.
I go, man, that's a fantastic acting job for an amateur. And he goes, well, I'm not really an amateur. I mean, I was trained by the FBI to
Mm-hmm.
interrogate people, and you have to remain calm and all this other stuff, just like camera. But he's done. It's called the girl in the picture, I believe, is what it's
Mm-hmm.
called. And then I keep talking to him over the next few weeks, and he gets more and more famous week by week. It is the number one Netflix show in the world for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And can you imagine how many views that is? That is
Oh yeah.
insane. And he goes, he's traveling somewhere, and people kept staring at him, and he goes, and my thing is, I don't really want people staring at me. And I said, well, you probably should have stayed out of the movie. And weeks later, autographs, women trying to get pictures with him and all this other stuff. Because he's a good looking guy, but he's got to be, what do you figure, 70?
Mm,
Yeah.
70,
Well,
early
that grunt
70s.
didn't really help. Is that a yes or a no?
That was me processing my thoughts. I was like, whoa, if I say close to 80, would they be like, look at this arsehole?
You probably, yeah. From my angle, it's close to 80. But anyway, what I really like the reason the story sticks out so much to me is the humility that this guy had about making the movie and being the number one movie and all the fame. But and then towards the end of the film, I'm not going to tell you how it ends because it really is worth watching. It's crazy, and this is where I live, which makes it even worse. But yeah, what a neat guy. Joe Fitzpatrick is his name.
Oh,
yeah,
now I remember.
Right. Well, a lot of Irish pubs, we tend to get a lot of police and stuff like that because half of our family were criminals and the other half of our family were the police, which explains why they were such successful criminals.
They always knew whether it was going to be a raid.
I am not going to be involved in that conversation, but that may be how it worked. Well, can you imagine if your brother got arrested, what your mother would do to you?
Oh, God.
Right. It'd be brutal. But yeah, Joe's a really fascinating guy, and he's been coming in here for a while. And he never, he'll talk openly about cases and stuff because they've all gone so far, they're all so far back. But really, really interesting guy to talk to. I really enjoy it. So for any of you watching, The Girl in the Mirror and creepy show. Picture shit. Of course, I had the wrong one.
The girl in the mirror might be some horror shit that I would watch.
Yeah, right. That's probably way worse. Isn't that crazy? So we get people in all the time that are. Do you remember a guy named Ray Liotta that was in Goodfellas?
The name sounds familiar.
Pockmarks on his face and stuff. He was like the young kid. He was the blue-eyed guy in Goodfellas. You were just not the person to talk to about this, are you? Okay. But well, anyway, I ended up one night sitting next to him at dinner, hanging out and chatting with him and all this stuff. I had no idea he was going to be so famous the next year.
Oh, wow. This was like before the movie came out?
Yeah, while they were making it, evidently.
Oh, wow.
I think he was making a hospital movie. And do you have a cow talking to you outside your window?
I think it was a lorry or something that went by in this little lane. Everything shook. That's why I looked out.
We didn't hear it. Thought the building was coming down. Yeah. Anyway, so I just have this weird deal of running across people on their way up, and it's kind of fun though to watch it progress. Okay, so let me tell you about a movie I did about 40 years ago. Since we're on entertainment, maybe you can cut this into one of these other pieces. So I shot this movie called shit. I can't even remember the name of the movie.
Jesus, was that the waiter one?
Let me start over. No. This is a girl that ended up being the mom in Breaking Bad. If any of you ever seen Breaking Bad,
I know.
That is literally an Oklahoma movie.
We have talked about this.
Right. So the guy who makes meth in the movie, his wife is actually, when she was younger, was 6 foot tall, stunning, beautiful actress. And I co-starred in a movie with her back when I was about 20 or 22 years old. And
Anna Gunn. We have talked about
Anna Gunn. Yeah. And she'd done like 6 different failed deals. And people don't understand in acting, you got to do what you're paid for. You don't really get to be that original until you are Marlon Brando. Then you can do whatever the hell you want. But until that point, you got to kind of do what they tell you to do. And she was in some terrible sitcoms and stuff. And she was really talented. And then all of a sudden, who would think Breaking Bad would be your thing that would propel you into fame? But she looked so different in the movie than I remember. She could probably walk around anywhere and nobody would bother her, even in India. Do you watch Breaking Bad and shit like that over there?
Yeah, they do. It's really popular here.
Right.
I
Wow.
don't know whether it is like more popular because of the friends I hang out with, or whether even
Right.
general population is watching these shows. You have an option to change the language.
Right.
Yeah, so I can actually watch Breaking Bad in one of the regional languages if I so choose to.
That would be fascinating. And I'm not going to do an imitation because if I did that right now, it would look like I was making fun of people rather than going, that is fascinating. You know, because when people do the reads on stuff like that, they usually get the
Mm-hmm.
cheapest actor they can get. They don't get the best actor, they get the cheapest.
Oh
And
yeah.
you watch it on a screen and then try to match up the words off of a paper script with it. That's why it's so bad. And, you know, if you weren't cooking meth, how do you even understand what meth is or what it
I
does or how
know.
you do it? Right.
Like I wonder,
It,
like I'll tell you this very weird instance that I've had when I was watching a Hindi movie in Oklahoma, but with the English subtitles on. And
oh, wow.
so in I think it's like more of Hinduism where when you marry someone, you take like that
Right.
red powder that you've seen at the temple, which is called
Yes.
kumkum. Okay, you take that and you
Mhm.
put it not on their like put it right there at the brow where the hair meets your forehead. And it's basically
Hey, you
like I
better
am
go back
married to
about
you.
5 seconds and restate that because the video
Oh,
stopped. Yeah.
oh. So in Hinduism, I think it would be where you take that red powder that you've seen at the temple, and if you put it on the during the
Yep.
wedding ceremony, you basically put that on the person you're marrying. Just say that yes, we are married. That is
Okay.
the significance of it. But I don't think whoever was
Huh.
doing the translations knew any of that shit because the subtitles down just said, put the red powder on your forehead. I was like, what the fuck is anybody going to understand from this?
That would be my point exactly right there. Subtext, man, it's brutal. I'm yeah, I mean stuff like that is you know actors have to pay rent like everybody else, and
Yeah.
much like your work and my work, there are things about my work that I don't really care for, but if I want to pay my rent, that has to be done as well as the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh
just,
yeah.
it just can't be just cool stuff, which is the fun stuff. So
What
that's
keeps the lights
awesome.
on?
That is a fact, my friend. I was in Austin and watched an Indian movie down there, bro, and I can't even tell you what it's called. I'm sorry to say, but it was good. It
Mm-hmm.
was you know my you know my favorite show, you know, get your wife, uh, Indian
Indian
Bride
matchmaker.
is it was one of the versions of that, except it was a bunch of supernatural hilarious stuff. I mean, it was cool. It really was. So
Sorry.
there you go.
For some reason,
So it
you
was a
just
fan.
went blank.
Your guys' families remind me of ours 50 years ago, where you know the other aunties are always watching what the kids are doing and then calling the parents to complain. This is what I saw your daughter doing. This is what. So it's a daughter who dropped out of some fantastic school and wanted to be an artist for some reason, and then they catch her at that point when it's time to be married, and it's it really is pretty good, but truthfully, no idea what the heck it was called. And this really wealthy family chooses her not because she's worth it, but they
Mm-hmm.
had some screening mechanism that showed that she would be the one to have the most children or the best opportunity for children or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nuts, but it was great.
See, this is where I actually cover my face and I'm like, yeah, we make those movies. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Well, you know, it's like an American rom com, but yeah, I mean, it really was. It was great. And I would see that one again. That one was worth doing.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. What else you want to talk about, homie? We got about 10 minutes. So in the news these days in Oklahoma, mostly because I put it in the news. So I guess we should put that part. So there is a theory in politics, and I would say in business as well. If somebody has clawed onto your leg or you know bit onto your leg, your goal is not to get them off of your leg because they can bite you again. The goal is to get them on somebody else's leg, right? Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with it. Now everybody else is familiar with it. I've got a guy here that I've been working against for about probably 3 or 4 months. And he has physically abused kids and mentally abused kids, and then done some stuff which might even be considered to be sexual abuse, depending on how you look at it.
Jeez.
Now, he's a football coach. So
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: legitimate accusers, federal lawsuit, Oklahoma State Bureau of investigation, state school board investigation, which is, calling it an investigation is probably a stretch.
Yeah.
And so the guy kept showing up to the school he was at, where the people he abused were. But he's also done it at 2 other schools. So I had verified people from 3 different schools talking to me about him. The lawsuit gets done, and our state school superintendent would not get rid of him. And finally, I had to go down there and shame his PR guy into putting this guy on leave. So the investigations are still going on, and a person called the superintendent's in charge of the school. This guy has said that he's going to let him come back to work as a principal and a football coach on the 1st of May, as soon as school is out. And that way he can get his team ready for next year. So if you were a kid that turned this guy in, you're now going to have to see him at school and his friendly teachers, the ones that support him and the ones that don't. But this has split this small town in half. This is something to really think about. Mm-hmm. So he's a good football coach. This is called a 1A school. It's the smallest high school you can have in the state. And they're good at football for being a small school. Mm-hmm. So the school board and some of the parents are willing to overlook. And he did a thing like he had these kids do naked up and downs, meaning you stand up and you go down like military and do a push-up, right? But they were naked and it was on plastic AstroTurf. And if you can imagine what that do to your junk, that's what the guy did.
That's
and I don't know if, right. I mean, that's pretty creepy. That literally, and then he is accused of exposing himself and shaking his junk and going, you got to have these to play football. Now, this is 1A football. 1 in 100,000 kids would make it to college, much less professional. It's that rare. But you can get the one. And he coached a guy, 20 or 30 years ago that ended up being a hugely famous in college, but the guy didn't make it to the pros. Wasn't big enough. Okay. So the thing is imagine what it feels like to be one of these kids. Everybody that is supposed to help you has turned on you. And you've got a group of parents that are defending you, but they have no power and they have no say in anything. So all of the men, essentially, and his ex-wife or his wife, who works at the school too, and then 2 of his children. I mean, it's really, they put people in place probably knowing something like this was going to come up. Isn't that weird? So they have the votes, and he's probably going to be able to come back. So, of course, I shared that lovely story with some of my news friends, and you've got the fury up there. And so May 1st, he's going to have news crews all over there again as he shows back
June 1st,
up.
Right?
Do what?
June 1st, right?
Oh, yeah, June 1st, right, not June 5th. Yeah, and so that's next week. And the what's really sad is how fucking hard is it to do the right thing? I mean, literally, how hard can it be to just go, no, this isn't right. You shouldn't have him around the kids. I mean, I'm not crazy.
I know. I wonder what it does to those kids' psyche to be fucking let down by all the adults they depend on. And how do they go through
all of them
after that?
Right. How do you make a comeback from that? And your view, so what people will say in therapy is hurt people hurt people. So what has it done to these kids? And for one, if they end up being abusers when they're older, they do know that probably nothing's going to happen, even if somebody tells on them.
You just need people in the right place when it's about to.
That's right. I know. Isn't that nuts? And instead
weird.
of teaching them morality and doing the right thing and being a better person and even if you're from a tiny town like that most people don't think about, You still want to be an example of how to be a good person for these people when they get older. And instead, they all just shit on you because they like to watch a good football game. I mean, it's one of the more upsetting things I've worked on. I got another one that I'm going to a hearing at 9:30 this morning. The school superintendent, Ryan Walters, is still trying to take a teaching license away from a teacher that gave a QR code to a library in New York because they were starting to ban books here, which we're still doing. And so she gave her kids a QR code. She goes, nobody gets to ban books. You can go here and get any book you want.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to make such an example of her that other teachers will be scared to do anything. And it worked. It really did. So have you and I ever talked about the lynch letters?
You had mentioned it.
Yeah. So that's what this is based off of. They would teach white slave owners, you know, if they had 300 slaves on their plantation, how do you keep everybody in line? So you take the biggest, strongest male and literally harm him beyond belief and then quarter him, you know, like put ropes on his arms and legs and have him pulled apart in front of all of the women. And then the women will keep the children in line that grow up that would naturally want to take over and not have one guy running 300 other people. So that's the theory behind it. So they hurt her, this really sweet, nice teacher, bad enough that it scares every other teacher to keep their mouth shut.
I wonder what's the thinking, at least in the parents' mind. I was always encouraged to read, and I was yelled at for not reading enough. Never.
Right. Well,
okay, you can't read that shit.
Yeah, different culture right there. What I would say is 20 years ago, we were like 37th in the nation in education, which is not great, but it's not terrible. We are now 49th. So it's been a steady drop. I don't know if it's on purpose. I mean, I can't think it's there's not some negative nature in there that's just trying to dumb other people down, and you change their focus to football rather than school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, which is going to get the average person further, reading or playing football.
I'm pretty sure that's what's happening with cricket in this country. Where
really,
if you have
you make it big.
Yeah, you follow the cricket. You don't fucking pay attention to what the politicians are up to during those months.
Yeah. And where did they learn that? Where are the Romans at right now with the gladiators? I mean, we're seeing a replay of a whole bunch of political stuff from about 2,200, 2,300 years ago. You know, and it's odd and it's working. Yeah. You know, it's got a track record and it works. So I'm sorry to see that you guys are doing the same thing over there. It's really, for me, being Irish, that was the only way we could fight the English, is get a good education and then not stay in Ireland. You know, come to America or go to England, beat them at their own game, or come to America and create your own game. Do whatever you want.
No shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nuts. All right. I'm guessing we're probably running out of time here in seconds, right?
7 minutes.
Oh, shit. That's awesome.
It's because I paused in between when we were having all that fuckery going on.
That's what we should have titled our thing, fuckery. All right. What else do you want to talk about, bro? We got 7 minutes. We can get one more story out.
I can talk to you about the weird little cricket game that I watched on, I think it was on Sunday night.
Okay, but I thought they went on for 3 days. How'd you watch it in one night?
So now they actually have a shorter format of the game, Sean, where it's played in 3 hours.
Wow. Really?
Because they realized it was a more marketable product. That industry, which started about 15 years ago, where they changed it to this format, is now worth like billions and billions of dollars.
Wow. God, that's crazy, isn't it? Jeez.
And again, Bangalore didn't make it through for the sole reason that we haven't won the damn thing in 15 years. I saw those people in like their weird t-shirts and stuff, all in cheers. And I was like, Jesus.
Oh, God.
And I was like, I wish I gave that much of a shit about something in my life when I was in cheers.
Yeah. I love playing soccer or, European football. And I enjoyed playing American football and I enjoyed playing basketball, but I was never that serious about any of them. If I watch Premier Soccer, I'm okay with it. but I also, have the knowledge of how many games were thrown over the past 10 years. And you go, yeah, this is all bullshit. And
Yeah.
I don't know if cricket's in that same category or not, but that's what kills me. And I look at American football and go, how many of these guys' brains are going to be scrambled in 20 years? I mean, we have tofu up here, and you've got 300-pound people running head to head, seeing if they can smash some tofu. I mean, that's brutal. I don't know about that whole deal, but it survived the science, and that's probably the thing to learn off of it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
know in America what the problem is. We've chosen to ignore it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do with people at that point when you choose to ignore it. And I just look and go, man, I don't know if I can be part of this, because if I'm watching, I'm part of it because advertising dollars,
Wasn't
But
like
it's
Fox News up in arms because Obama in some interview way back when said that he would never let his kids play American
football,
football, and they
right?
got super upset with him.
Well, I think they got super upset with him that anything he said, because for one, he didn't have boys, so it
Mhm.
doesn't even matter. It, Look, he was a smart guy and an incredibly talented communicator and really easy to like.
Yeah.
So you had to find something else to challenge him with, and it had to make the less educated part of our clientele or our political machine up here uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And look at what the black guy said. Everything, and people go, "Oh, I'm not a racist." And we have found out after Donald Trump that now they're openly saying they are racist and they don't give a shit. So it's the same people who used to say they weren't, but
Hmm.
we all knew they were, and now they're so emboldened they don't care.
Oh, yeah. This is like
Right?
never before.
It's tricky. I am sure it's happened before, but it wasn't documented like it is now. I mean, it's really and truly some of that stuff is concerning, and there's nothing you can do about inherent bias that people have. If they're aware of it, that's as far as you're going to go. You're not going to make them change their behavior. I mean, you're just I will negotiate with Iranians, but I don't like to negotiate with them because they're such damn good negotiators. It isn't that I don't like Iranians. They're just, God, they're off the chart negotiators. And the negotiation never ends. I want a price to see if I can make money on it. And there's just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
Crazy.
half the times I can walk away from some conversation and not know what the price was because I am so
Right.
confused.
Right. Yeah. And that's the goal, is to keep everybody on their toes. So yeah, it's nuts. All right, man.